Hey everyone, welcome back to Dollar Games, and so, I owe you all an apology. A little while ago, I made a video saying that Trails Through Daybreak was the best place to start your Trails journey. And at the time, I really believed that. It made sense with what we had available. But here's the thing, I was wrong. Not wrong in the sense that Daybreak is a bad place to start, because it's still a fantastic entry point, but wrong because things have changed. When I made that video, we didn't have the Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake, and now that it's here, it completely changes the conversation. So today, I want to talk about why I've changed my stance, why I think Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake is now the absolute best place to start your Trails journey, and more importantly, why I feel like I need to set the record straight. Of course, if you love my content, don't forget to like and subscribe as I continue to grow my channel. It means a lot, and I appreciate all of you. Now, let's get into it. Now, when I made the first video, my reasoning really came down to accessibility. The Trails series is massive, like 10 plus games deep, spanning multiple regions and dozens of overlapping storylines. For newcomers, that can feel like staring at the episode count of One Piece and questioning your existence. But much like One Piece, it's worth the commitment.
Do it.
Trails Through Daybreak came along as this fresh, modern entry point. It had just released, the hype was strong, and most importantly, it didn't require you to have years of Trails knowledge under your belt to enjoy it. Now at the time, it felt like the right answer. One of the biggest selling points for Daybreak was Van Arkwright himself. He's not tied to the Bracer Guild, the Erebonian military, or any of the existing Trails institutions. He's a Spriggan. Basically, a mercenary for hire who takes jobs from anyone, whether noble, shady, or somewhere in between. That setup made him incredibly approachable for new players. You didn't need to know the ins and outs of Liberl or Crossbell to understand Van. He was new to us, and that made stepping into his story much easier than jumping into the middle of Erebonian politics or Crossbell conspiracies. Now, the world of Calvard also helped sell me on it as a starting point. It was uncharted territory for longtime fans and newcomers alike, which meant everyone was starting on a more level playing field. You weren't missing out on callbacks or references that require Encyclopedia Trails knowledge to catch. Instead, you got a self-contained story that still hinted at the larger interconnected world, but without overwhelming you from the start. For someone nervous about diving in, that was a huge plus. Then you look at the gameplay. Daybreak shook things up with its hybrid battle system, blending real-time action with the classic turn-based mechanics Falcom is known for. It was slick, modern, and honestly, a lot of fun. If you came into Trails expecting something old school and clunky, Daybreak completely shattered that expectation. Add in the choice-driven alignment system where Van's decisions shape the story and relationships, and the slick new Zypha system that made older orbments feel outdated, and you had a game that felt tailor-made for modern RPG fans. All of that factored into why I crowned Daybreak as the best place to start. At the time, it was a complete package. A new protagonist, a new country, approachable mechanics, and the modern polish that could pull in someone who had never touched a Trails game before. It wasn't me ignoring the importance of Trails in the Sky. It was me trying to give people a realistic on-ramp for a series that can feel impossible to approach. And I still stand by the fact that with what was available back then, it was the right call. But here's the thing. Times change, and with the arrival of Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake, the landscape has shifted completely. Suddenly, the choice isn't between start with the foundation, but deal with the outdated systems, or jump into something modern but miss the roots. Now, for the first time, newcomers can start where the series truly begins without compromise, and that's why I need to set the record straight. And this is where everything changes. The release of the Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake completely reshapes the conversation about where to start. For years, veterans of the series have been telling newcomers, well, you really should begin with Sky FC. That's where it all started. That's the foundation. And they weren't wrong. But until now, recommending Sky FC came with baggage. The original release from 2004, while beloved, looked dated and had systems that could feel intimidating from someone new to JRPGs. You had to ask people to look past the rough edges to appreciate the heart of the story. With the remake, that barrier is gone. Now, the remake doesn't just slap on a fresh coat of paint. It's the best case scenario for any fan of the series out there. You aren't getting a reimagining of this game like you did with something like, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Instead, you're getting an incredible retelling of the beloved story with just about everything you remember intact. The new visual style gives Liberl a vibrancy and warmth that fits perfectly with its tone. A grounded, character-driven adventure that slowly expands into something much bigger. It feels alive in the way the older release couldn't quite capture for modern audiences with such small sprites and limited technology. And boy, did they put the new technology to good use. Thank you, Falcom. Now, before I dive into some of my favorite aspects like the gameplay, I want to address the old elephant in the room, the translation. Now, I know, this is a loaded topic online and I don't want to throw myself too deep into the discourse, but I do want to be upfront about how I feel. If you disagree, that's totally fine. Let's talk about it in the comments, and please, let's keep it civil. You guys are awesome, and I want this community to stay respectful. So here we go. I have a lot of experience in editing and translating between Japanese and English post-university. I spent about 5 years working across different areas in Japan, and my favorite time was working for an NGO in Hiroshima. Let me reel myself back in before I get too far off topic. Basically, I have a passion for language in general. So when I heard that Gung Ho was planning to take a more one-to-one approach to translation, I was a little worried. On paper, one-to-one sounds great, but in practice, Japanese and English handle expressions very differently. In Japanese, a single word can mean several things depending on context, while in English that usually isn't the case. So when you translate directly, you can end up with repetitive phrasing. Think about Naruto and that infamous "believe it" line. It's cringy because that's not how we naturally talk in English.
Believe it! Believe it! Believe it! So believe it! Then believe it! Believe it! Believe it!
That's why I believe there needs to be a balance between localization and direct translation that creates a script appealing to English-speaking audiences. After playing the demo, I can say the script is fine. It gets a little awkward here and there, but overall it conveys what it needs to in a good way. It almost feels like a throwback to JRPG translations of the 90s, just without the working design flair. Now, Gung Ho, all you need to do is ensure that terminology is consistent with the rest of the series. Got it? Thank you, and please update it. Now, the key strengths this game has and what helps smooth out some of those translation quirks is the voice acting. The performances elevate the script, bringing new layers of emotion to Estelle and Joshua's journey. Their banter, their growth, and the big story moments all land with much more impact. It's the kind of upgrade that not only makes the story more accessible to newcomers, but also gives longtime fans a fresh way to experience scenes they've loved for years. Okay, sorry for that translation rant, but I felt like I needed to get it off my chest. I was not joking when I said sorry at the beginning of this video, and it's becoming a theme here. Anyway, let's get into the gameplay. First Chapter Remake takes the already incredible combat of Daybreak and cranks it up a notch. As I said earlier, one of the biggest reasons Daybreak works so well as an entry point is its versatile system. But unless you're playing on Nightmare, it's not overly punishing. That's why I was honestly shocked by how tough this remake can be. It carries that same sense of challenge the originals had. Tough, but never truly unfair, which for me is incredibly nostalgic. At the same time, it offers multiple difficulty options so you can tailor the experience. And if you get stuck on a boss, the game even offers to lower the difficulty. No shame in that. No one's watching. Do what makes you happy and don't let your dreams be dreams.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Another thing I love is the ability to switch between action combat and turn-based strategy. It makes dungeon crawling feel faster and smoother while still giving you the option to slow down and think when facing tougher enemies. Now for this video, I only had access to the same build as everyone else. No review code here, but I was hooked running Estelle as my main. Her wide-reaching attacks that clear the field feel both fun and true to her style. I can't wait to see how Olivier and the rest of the crew feel in the full game. Now, beyond that, the game stays faithful to the original structure, and that's a huge win. You still take on quests, revisit familiar beats, and progress in a way that honors the first release. It's a love letter to fans while being accessible to newcomers, showing just how much care Falcom poured into this project. I'm especially excited to explore all of Liberl again with Estelle and Joshua, as they handle Bracer guild requests to earn those recommendation letters. The loop of arriving in a city, learning its history, meeting its people, and tackling requests before moving on is exactly the kind of cozy rhythm JRPGs do best. And with cozy season upon us, it couldn't feel more fitting. But I'll admit, the same slow burn pacing can be a hurdle for some. The early hours are deliberately relaxed, taking time to build the world and drip feed pieces of the bigger plot. If you prefer constant action, it might feel sluggish. Still, the payoff is worth it, because the game's structure is also what makes it perfect for people with limited time. And yes, I hear you guys yelling, Dala, how is a 60+ hour JRPG good for people with no time? Well, let me cook. The way the loop is built means you can pick it up for short bursts. Knock out a few Bracer Guild requests, clear a dungeon, and then put it down and come back later. It's steady progress in digestible chunks, and when you do have hours to sink in, you'll be rewarded for every second spent in the world. Now, another aspect I thought was really cool is the orbment system. I've grown so used to the more complex, feature-packed versions from the sequel arcs that I almost forgot where it all started. Since this game takes place years before the Daybreak era, you can really see the origins of this technology. And it's awesome to live through the evolution in real time as you make your way across the series. That's one of the big reasons I always tell people to play these games. It feels like a living, breathing world that changes with each arc. Now, the orbit system in the game is a perfect introduction for newcomers. It's simple enough to pick up, but still carries strategic depth with how you slot quartz to unlock certain skills. So don't be afraid to experiment and try different builds for each character. It's part of the fun. Now lastly, I need to talk about the music. If you know Falcom, you already know they don't mess around when it comes down to their soundtracks. And this remake is no exception. If you never played the original, you're in for an incredible musical experience, and honestly, I couldn't be more excited for that. Even better, the remake gives you 3 different options in the settings for how you want to hear it. Now you have the original, which pulls straight from the classic releases. Customize is the Evo version of the soundtrack, and Standard is the newly arranged version created specifically for this remake. Though, small nitpick here, the Japanese version actually calls the middle option arranged, and I don't know why it got translated incorrectly. But hey, it is what it is. Either way, none of the choices are wrong. Pick your favorite, sit back, and enjoy. Because no matter which you choose, you're getting peak Falcom music. So yeah, I'll say it again. I was wrong before when I crowned Trails Through Daybreak as the best entry point. I wasn't trying to steer anyone wrong, I promise. At the time, it was the most approachable option and a fantastic game to dive into. But with Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake finally here, we don't have to make compromises anymore. You can now start where it all began with a modern polish that makes it welcoming for newcomers and still meaningful for longtime fans. Now, this remake captures everything that makes Trails special. The warmth of Estelle and Joshua's journey, that slow burn storytelling, the rich world of Liberl, and the sense of discovery that builds as the story unfolds. It's cozy, heartfelt, and challenging in all the right ways, while also being updated enough to fit the expectations of modern JRPG players. For me, that makes it the perfect gateway into the series. So if you've ever wanted to get into Trails but felt overwhelmed, now is the time. Trails in the Sky First Chapter Remake is the true beginning, the foundation of everything that comes after, and it finally is accessible as it deserves to be. To all newcomers, welcome to Liberl, and to all the veterans, let's enjoy this fresh take together. Thank you all for watching, for sticking with me through my Trails ramblings, honestly this was a ramble, and for holding me accountable when I make bold claims. If you're as excited for this remake as I am, let me know in the comments where you plan to start your Trails journey. Now don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with anyone who's been on the fence about jumping in. Until next time, take care everybody.